Mark Harmon is synonymous with NCIS, but before he reached the pinnacle of television fame, he had an opportunity to make it big in movies. Harmon said he missed many family milestones because of his filming schedule. Join us in this video as we explore why Mark Harmon stopped making movies, and also have a look at the movies and movie stars that expose a different side of the actor. First up, missing his son's first steps. When his kids were still young, Mark Harmon headed off to New Guinea to work on a film. When the shooting was over and he returned home, his infant son had started walking. That was just one of the family milestones he missed because of his hectic work schedule. At that point, he told his wife he wasn't going to be making any new films in New Guinea for as long as he lives. Sure, it pays the bills, he told her, but he was not prepared to miss anything else in the lives of his family. And with that, the decision was made. Harmon pivoted, turned his back on feature projects, and started focusing on television shows. Television allowed him to be at home when every workday ended. Harmon's NCIS character, Gibbs, made him a household name. While he left the show back in 2021, fans are still holding out that he may consider making some kind of return in the future. In a recent conversation with TV Insider, Stephen D. Binder, the executive producer of NCIS, said it was probably unlikely that Harmon would make a full return in season 20 of the CBS hit show. Agent Gibbs won't be a regular feature on the show anymore, but he also added that he wasn't ruling out Harmon for future appearances. The intro of the show still features Mark Harmon's character, but Stephen D. Binder emphasized again that there were no plans in the pipeline to bring Agent Gibbs back as a permanent character. Harmon left the show on good terms, and this is why Binder said there will always be space for him to come back. That is according to the TV Insider just after the 23rd of May season 19 finale. Harmon wasn't always the good guy on screen, though. We're going to dig into his past in a moment, so don't go away. Also, Harmon was a real-life hero in the 1990s. So we all know Mark Harmon well as Gibbs, but did you know he actually saved a teenager's life in the mid-1990s? He was a youngster trapped in a flaming car. Harmon didn't hesitate for a second. He smashed the window of the car with a sledgehammer and freed the young man. This makes Harmon and Gibbs birds of a feather, and no wonder Binder calls Harmon a dear friend. The executive producer of NCIS also said that Mark remains an interwoven strand of the very fabric of the show, and that the show's North Star has always been to remain true to the characters. That truth, he said, is what guides every story and every episode, and it determines the character arcs. So Harmon isn't in the show anymore. We miss him on our television screens, but he is still in the opening credits, and he is still an executive producer of the show too. So while there are a whole bunch of denials, there are fans who are playing a waiting game to find out if NCIS will see Leroy Jethro Gibbs return in the fall. There's so much darkness in movies, television, and media, and NCIS fights back and works within the industry to propel positive and uplifting content, even if the storylines are suspenseful. Now, movies that expose a different side of Mark Harmon. If you say Mark Harmon, you may as well say Leroy Jethro Gibbs. He is large and in charge of NCIS and leads the team with an iron fist. He has a lot of inner conflict going on, and he is as compassionate as they come, especially toward those he calls friends. He has suffered huge trauma, but he's out to serve and puts himself second when he has to protect the innocent. It is impossible to play a role like this for 17 years and not become intimately connected to the character. While Harmon hasn't made many forays outside of NCIS, he is more than capable of portraying roles without a badge. So here are a couple of films that show a very different side to Harmon, and believe it or not, he has also done his fair share of romantic comedies. Summer School in 1987's teen comedy. Mark Harmon plays the detached and apathetic gym teacher. This bare minimum guy is called Freddie Shoop, and he plans to take the summer off on the beaches of Hawaii. But all his plans go up in flames when he is seconded to teach summer school. When he protests, he is given a choice: teach or lose his job. Kirstie Alley, who played a history teacher with a lot of compassion for Freddie Shoop, lends a hand. While he focuses on learning how to fake genuine concern and how to merely appear supportive as a mentor, he actually learns a couple of things about himself and ends up growing as a person. Since he's been on NCIS for almost 2 decades, it's easy to forget that Harmon played alongside some of Hollywood's biggest names. Stay with us, we're looking at that shortly. Also, he did Prince of Bel-Air. Firstly, no, this is not the Will Smith sitcom, but Mark Harmon's Prince of Bel-Air is also a comedy. In the film, he plays a pool cleaner and womanizer who becomes infatuated with a client. This spurs him to evaluate his lifestyle. The movie sees Harmon and Kirstie Alley team up yet again. At NCIS, Mark Harmon spent 17 years as the guy who goes out to catch the killer. Yet he has also portrayed the infamous serial killer Ted Bundy in a movie called The Deliberate Stranger. The movie was released in 1986, and Harmon turned out to be the perfect leading man to play the charming, manipulative Bundy, who nobody would have ever suspected of his vile murders. And incidentally, the year the movie was released was also the year in which People magazine voted Mark Harmon the sexiest man alive. Bundy was an early role for Harmon, but it is a part he is well remembered for. It certainly wasn't an easy easy gig to get him out of the gate. In 1989, Harmon starred in another romantic comedy, Worth Winning. The film featured other talents like Madeline Stowe, Maria Hulver, and Leslie Ann Warren. In the story, Mark Harmon is a TV weatherman full of confidence. In fact, he is so self-assured he thinks he's God's gift to women. He bets his buddies he can get 3 yeses to 3 proposals within 1 month. He ends up winning the bet, but then the women get together and they start plotting their revenge. The one trend that emerges when looking at Harmon's early career is that he had a penchant for playing womanizers. Weather Girl's storyline follows Trisha O'Kelly's Sylvia, a weather forecaster who learns that her lover is cheating on her. And yes, you guessed right, the lover is none other than Mark Harmon. He plays the lover who eventually gets exposed while appearing on live television. He doesn't handle it all that well, but then laughs it off. This character wasn't the kind of good guy persona we've become accustomed to with Harmon's Gibbs at all. Also, Harmon has worked with many famous actors before NCIS. For us, Harmon will always be Agent Gibbs. It is, after all, the role that brought him into our homes and that underpinned much of his own mega success, and probably that of the show as well. And he's known as much for his role behind the scenes as one of NCIS's executive directors as he is for his role of Gibbs in front of the cameras. While NCIS will always be Harmon's claim to fame, he has worked alongside some of Hollywood's greatest stars and talents. That was before missing his son's first steps and settling down in television. Not many people can claim that they once worked with Elizabeth Taylor, and even less can say that they were her romantic interest in a film. Taylor and Harmon played opposite one another in Sweet Bird of Youth, a 1989 television film. In the story, a legendary actor whose star is starting to fade turns to drugs to cope, and she turns to a shady drifter for comfort. Of course, the star was Taylor and the drifter was Harmon. Harmon, Meg Ryan, and Sean Connery were all in front of the cameras in The Presidio. This crime drama from 1988 was full of action, and the storyline was about a San Francisco detective with a military police past. His name is Jay Austen, and when his former partner is murdered, he seeks out an old rival, Lieutenant Colonel Alan Caldwell, for help. Caldwell is played by Sean Connery, and the whole situation gets even more fraught when Austen falls for Caldwell's daughter, played by Meg Ryan. We'll be ending this video with a look at his work with Jamie Lee Curtis and Robert Duvall. Keep watching until the end. Now, Harmon also worked with Jodie Foster in 1988. The film was called Stealing Home, and Mark Harmon and actor-director genius Jodie Foster played opposite each other. Billy, a failed baseball player played by Harmon, discovers the suicide of his childhood sweetheart, Foster, and has to confront his past. He does so with nostalgia and reminiscence while walking hip-deep in his own grief. He also undertakes a journey in honor of his sweetheart's last wish, that he spreads her ashes. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas was not for the faint of heart, and Johnny Depp's performance was something to behold. Although Mark Harmon didn't have a huge part in the film, he did play alongside Depp, Tobey Maguire, and Benicio del Toro. And finally, he also had roles with Jamie Lee Curtis and Robert Duvall. Shortly before the premiere of NCIS, Harmon did the Freaky Friday remake with Curtis and Lindsay Lohan. He was Tess Coleman's husband in the story, and of course, Coleman was played by Jamie Lee Curtis. He wasn't one of the characters who swapped identities in the movie, but his role was major, and he was integral to the story, and he was center stage in all the mayhem that unfolds as the story plays out. Gary Busey and Robert Duvall joined Mark Harmon on screen in the 1986 action-adventure Let's Get Harry. This story follows a man who enlists the help of a few mercenary friends and then travels to Colombia to rescue his kidnapped brother. The film wasn't well received by critics, but Harmon's work was stellar as always. And that is where we end this video, folks. Hit like, subscribe, and follow on your way out, and remember to look for our next contribution.